Hey guys, we are Sean and Christy. This is Long Long Honeymoon, and this week we're discussing a fantastic RV travel destination, Zion National Park in Utah. And the first thing you need to know about Zion is it's not pronounced Zion, it's pronounced Zion. And it's located near the town of Hurricane, Utah. Not Hurricane, Utah. Hurricane.
He's actually not kidding about that.
I have been corrected by many Utah residents about my mispronunciation of Zion. I mean, Zion.
I think it's supposed to be Zion, like lion.
Right. And Hurricane, like...
Hurricane.
I don't know. I can't think of an equivalent for hurricane. But Zion National Park should be on your radar because it is one of the most spectacularly beautiful national parks in the entire national park system.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely been a highlight for us in the times that we visited. And we actually drove past it a few years in a row before we finally ever stopped.
How embarrassing. Did we just admit that in public?
We did. I mean, you can't see everything on every trip, so don't be too embarrassed about it, I don't think. But it's definitely one that I would put towards the top of your list if you're making a list of national parks to see.
Truthfully, we had been RV traveling for many years before we really discovered the true beauty of Utah. And Utah is I run out of adjectives.
Yeah.
I keep on saying spectacularly beautiful, but it really is an incredibly beautiful state.
Yeah, it really is because it has that sort of desert feel of like Arizona, mixed with the mountain feel of Montana, maybe. I don't know. It's sort of like if those two states merged, they make Utah.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but they have the green trees and they have the Red Rock Canyons. So those two things kind of merged together just makes for this really stunning scenery.
So it's pretty hard to capture this on video, but when you look at this gigantic mountain, you're struck first by just the colors and the shapes that you see in the mountain. Then you notice these really tall trees growing on ledges on the side of the mountain, and you just begin to realize the scope of this place.
Yeah, so you go to Zion to see these basically mountains in the desert.
Yes.
And yeah, something that's kind of surprising is the lush green vegetation that you'll also find in places in Zion, because you'll see water just running down the walls of these Red Rock Canyons. That's what makes Zion special, and you have to know up front, Zion is one of the most popular national parks in the entire system. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's located only about 160 miles from Las Vegas.
Viva!
So there are a lot of international visitors who fly into Las Vegas, they get a rental car, and they head over to Zion. So Zion is such a popular destination that it can at times be incredibly crowded, perhaps even more so during the COVID pandemic era, because everybody's gotten out and gone RV camping and everybody wants to visit the national parks. There are times in Zion when you're going to have difficulty even locating a parking space.
Unfortunately, parking is a pretty big issue in Zion. And parking is especially difficult if you're trying to park a large pickup truck. There's a trail we were wanting to hike, but we just couldn't get parking anywhere near it.
That's the way I like to hike too.
Hi, how are you? Thanks. Is the parking, it's pretty full, or?
Try the first right. It might be loosening up, and if not, try the second right or the second left.
We're just gonna drive anyway. Thank you.
So that's something that those of you with large RV rigs need to know. It's not the most RV friendly destination, just in terms of navigating a big rig around in that area and finding a place to park.
Yeah, it's not a national park where you're going to want to tow your RV through the park while you're sightseeing. It's really just a drive through to get to your campground sort of situation, if you even need to drive through carrying your rig to get to your destination. It is a park where the the road goes from east to west or west to east, depending on how you're driving in. If you're coming from the west, then you were going to find plenty of campgrounds and RV parks to drop your rig at before you enter the park. If you're coming from the east, then you're probably going to have to drive through the park to get to your destination campground.
Zion is going to be beautiful anytime you visit, but I think time of day will affect the colors and the perspective you have of these various mountains and rock formations. Late in the day, when the sun is setting in the west, you can drive towards the western entrance and everything's going to be bathed in nice afternoon light.
And something that's very important to know, if you have a larger RV rig, the park is bisected, fancy word, by this tunnel that dates back to 1930, and it's a relatively short height tunnel. So if you have a larger, taller RV rig, they have to close traffic through each side of the tunnel to allow you to drive your rig through it. So you have to purchase a ticket, which at last glance costs $15 and provides you with passage through the tunnel and back, because they actually have to stop all traffic for the RVs to go through that tunnel.
Yeah, and the reason is it is an arched tunnel, so when you drive through the tunnel, if you're a larger RV, and yes, our Airstream does qualify, and we are relatively short in the world of RVs, so keep that in mind. All the details are on the Zion National Park website. You have to drive down the middle of the road when you go through the tunnel in your RV, so that's why they have to close it going both directions, so that you can just ride that middle line to get to the other end. It is only manned for certain hours during the day. So that means if you get to that tunnel and it's not hours where it's manned, you are going to be in a pickle, my friend, because there's really no place to turn around and there's nobody there to get you through the tunnel. So make sure you check out the website to see what the manned hours are for that tunnel, because it does change depending on time of year. The hours are shorter in the winter and longer in the summer, and so it's just something that you need to do some research on.
I would definitely recommend driving that road because, first of all, it's a very scenic drive. If you're not a big hiker, you can take this scenic drive and still see some incredibly beautiful views.
Absolutely.
Also, just the experience of going through the tunnel is kind of fascinating and fun and memorable.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the tunnel is a mile long. Is that right?
Sounds right.
And about halfway through the tunnel, there's a big opening off to one side where you can look out and see, the park. So that's pretty cool. But other than that, it is just, pitch black dark in there. So it's definitely an experience to tow or drive through, even if you're not towing. So definitely do that. I think it's worth your time while you're there.
But for the most part, you will not be doing your own driving in Zion National Park. That's because a lot of the most popular destinations are only accessible by shuttle bus.
Or you can ride your bicycle. That isn't the other option.
Yeah, and actually Zion would be a fantastic place to have an electric bike.
Yes.
Because you could just get your e-bike back in there and explore to your heart's content. Otherwise, you're going to be riding the shuttles. Now, the shuttles are not expensive. I think a ticket is $1 or something like that.
And really, it's only $1, I think, right now during COVID, because you have to reserve it in advance online. Or if you happen to be a wing it kind of person like we are, you show up in the afternoon, I think around 2 or 3 o'clock, and they release the rest of the tickets for the afternoon. So you can do that, and I don't think there's a charge for that.
We've been to Zion a few times. I mean, during the busier times of year in non-pandemic years, those tickets can be a little hard to come by.
Yeah, they definitely can.
Now, during the pandemic, we were there recently in October, and there were plenty of tickets available for the shuttle.
In the afternoon. Now, if you were trying to get on early morning so that you could go do the Narrows hike where you have to wear your waders and all that good stuff, then you were having to book that several days in advance. We didn't do that hike this time, so we weren't worried about that. So we did get afternoon tickets and had no problems.
Basically, the way this works, you show up, you got your shuttle ticket, you hop on the shuttle, and the shuttle will go to various stops within the park. You can choose whichever stop you want, And at pretty much all of these stops, you're going to find great hiking trails. So if you're into hiking, Zion is a wonderful destination. I've also seen people rock climbing there. We're not really big rock climbers, but if you're into climbing rocks, I think it would be a fantastic place.
Yes, absolutely. You can also visit the lodge there by taking the shuttle. It's a way to see that.
So here you can see the grounds crew at Zion Lodge, hard at work, keeping the greenery trimmed, nice and neat. We appreciate their efforts.
That brings me to wildlife, because I remember the scene in front of the lodge. There were probably 30 or 40 deer grazing on the grass there. It makes me think of the wildlife that you might see in Zion. There are bighorn sheep, wookalars, wombats. No, probably no wombats or wookalars.
I think the only thing we've ever seen there is a deer.
Yeah.
It's not really, it's not a wildlife scene.
No, but I think there are, apparently there are fox around there. There are some cougars, you know, those 30 to 40 something year old women. Oh, no, I mean, there are actual cats there.
You're older than me, so I don't qualify as a cougar. Thank you very much.
Well, what does that make me?
Smart.
Good answer. So it's not really a wildlife destination like Grand Teton National Park or Yellowstone. It's really more of a scenic vista and hiking destination.
It is where the famous Angel's Landing hike is, if you've ever heard about that. That is not for the faint of heart. It is pretty vertical and pretty steep to the point where there are parts of the hike where you have to grab chain holds to like pull yourself up. So if you're thinking of doing that hike, I would do some serious research before you tackle that.
With my knees, if she ever really wants to get rid of me, she's booking the Angel's Landing hike. No one would ask any questions.
I wouldn't do that.
If I went over a cliff. You've thought about it.
No. Well, I mean, no.
So this is South Campground in Zion. Unfortunately, the campground is full, which is not a great surprise, but it's a great campground with great views. This campground can be booked by reservation only. You can't just show up. You have to book it online.
If you're traveling to Zion with your RV and you're looking for campgrounds within the park, you only have two choices.
It's the South Campground and the Watchman Campground. They are right next to each other at the west entrance of the park. They're beautiful locations, but they are very tough to book. So just know that and do some far in advance planning if you want to stay in the park.
So we often end up staying at a private RV resort type of place. It's called Zion River Resort, and it's about 10 miles outside the west entrance of the park.
It's in the town of Virgin, Utah, which there's not really anything in that town. You have to go into Springdale. Springdale is the town right before
Springdale. Springdale is the town located right outside the entrance to the park. Spelled Springdale, but it's Springdale, I think.
Anyhow, that is a really cute little town. They have a couple of RV parks there, but they're fairly small. But that's where you're going to go to like get a meal or do some grocery shopping, what have you. If you're staying at the Zion River Resort in Virgin, you can also scoot over to Hurricane, and that's a much bigger town with much bigger, grocery stores and that sort of thing. So you're sort of right there in the middle if you're staying at Zion River Resort.
Yeah, I will just warn you, Springdale, the little town right outside the entrance of Zion, is a pretty expensive little town. It's a small town. It's got some great little restaurants.
Yes.
We would recommend Oscar's Cafe.
More health food.
In my defense, I did order the sweet potato fries and the whiptail grill.
Yes.
And if you're going grocery shopping in Springdale, it is the home of the $8 frozen burrito. So keep that in mind. You're going to pay some money.
I highly suggest that you load up on your groceries in Hurricane or in St. George, which is not too far away either. That way you have a lot more options and it's a lot cheaper because, wow, that little grocery store is very expensive.
See, we're real people. We really exist.
That's so cool.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, if you've never been to St. George, Utah, it's located like a 20 to 30 minute drive away from Zion, and it's a really great little town. We like going to St. George. It's got everything there. All your big box stores, great
Costco.
grocery stores, a Chick-fil-A.
Yes, they have In-N-Out Burger.
In-N-Out Burger, everything you need, all
Jersey
the
Mike's.
essentials. So you can get all that stuff in St. George and load up and then go over to your campsite. And with regard to camping near Zion, I want to ask all the Utah residents. Everybody in Utah seems to have their own secret camping spot.
Yes.
So we invite you to share with our community, post a comment, let us know some of those places that are near Zion that are not necessarily these fancy schmancy RV resorts, but maybe just some land where you can camp with no hookups, boondock. Because I'm told there are some places near Zion, and we would love to hear about those and visit them next time.
Depending on the time of year you're at Zion, it can be pretty hot here. And probably no matter the time of year, you should carry some water, some sort of liquid. Not beer, water.
What about the best time to visit Zion? Well, one factor, in addition to the weather, would be the crowds. And I think the crowds probably peak during summertime.
Yeah, even though I think that's probably the worst time to visit because it will be so incredibly hot there.
In recent years, a lot of these hiking trails at Zion have gotten pretty crowded, frankly. And some of the more popular hikes, there have been a lot of hikers on the trail at any one time. I would say the park has been operating at near full capacity. But once you step off on these trails, it gets pretty quiet. And although we're seeing people along the trail, it certainly hasn't been too busy.
We were recently there in October, and it seemed to be a fairly ideal time to visit, at least from a weather standpoint. It was getting a little bit chilly at night, but during the day, it was perfect hiking weather.
Absolutely. I think the one exception may be that Narrows hike, just because you do wade through water. And yes, you are wearing waders if you're somebody that's prepared for that hike. And even though you're wearing waders, if you're wading through frigid water, it's still going to be cold. So that might be the one hike that you would go kind of more in the heat of summer to do and enjoy a little more. Something else you have to really worry about if you're going to be doing that Narrows hike is rainfall. You really have to watch the weather and make sure that there hasn't been a forecast of rain, because that is an area that can experience flash flooding, which can be deadly. So definitely, if you're considering that hike, check with the Park Service, make sure there aren't any forecasts for that. Overall, I think Zion is a great park to visit. Even if you don't have the physical ability to get out and do some of these hikes, if you just ride the shuttle and if you just drive, the tunnel and the scenic drive through the park, you're going to see so much. There really is so much just to see from the road. So I think don't be discouraged if you're somebody that can't go on hikes. If you're somebody that can go on hikes, you're hitting the jackpot, because there are so many incredible views from inside this park. And the hikes aren't all these hikes where you've got to hike to Angel's Landing, 10 miles or whatever, round trip or however far it is. Sorry, I'm probably wrong on that. But, you can do these hikes that are 2, 3, 4 miles and have just stunning views the entire time.
We have been to every one of the mighty 5, the 5 national parks in the state of Utah. They each have wonderful qualities. I think Zion is probably the crown jewel.
I think so. I mean, I think Arches is very cool, but
Arches is pretty special.
I think Zion has that unique blend of the red rocks and the mountains and the trees. You sort of get it all.
Yeah, something you see in Zion that you don't see in a lot of places, it's not just the red rock, it's the patterns in the rock.
Yes.
It is a beautiful place to view.
Yeah.
It looks like an artist drew up some of those rock formations in Zion.
Well, he did.
Some would say.
I mean, it really is. I mean, there are patterns in the rock that look like somebody's just stamped it, in the rock or swirled paint through it. But even if you just pull over on the side of the road and just sit there and look around and don't even get out and do a hike, you're going to see amazing things.
Sorry guys, that's a look at Zion National Park, one of the mighty 5 national parks in Utah. We've enjoyed it every time we visited and highly recommend it.
If you have a favorite hike in Zion that you think we absolutely have to do next time, let us know. If you've got a boondocking spot somewhere that you just think everybody should visit at one point, let us know. And you never know, you might see us the next time you go.
All right, guys, until next time, thanks for tuning in. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe because we're cranking out videos like this every week.
Like, comment, share with your friends. Spread the love of Loloho Nation.
This has been yet another episode of Long, Long Honeymoon where we say,
Loloho.
And by the way, guys, we continue receiving a lot of questions about the ceramic nano shield coating that we had applied to our Airstream out in California. If you have specific, detailed, technical questions about that ceramic coating, talk to Vinny. Don't ask me. Ask Vinny at Vinny's North Bay Airstream Repair out in Wilton. Here's Vinny's contact information, his email, his phone number. Call Vinny and he can hook you up. Tell him Sean sent you. He's going to kill me for this one.